Justin Jefferson is bound to bounce back this week, but we don't have as great of news about Tyreek Hill. We're going to dig into and debate our wide receiver and tight end rankings for week 13 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, helping you win your fantasy football leagues. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. Happy early Thanksgiving. Programming reminder, we'll be off tomorrow, but we're going to get you all taken care of with your wide receiver and tight end ranking show today. So we've got you covered, right, Michelle?
Oh, yeah. We'll have you prep for these games tomorrow and Friday and Sunday. And so many games, so many days. I just want to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, like you mentioned, we're digging into our wide receiver and tight ends. Right at the top here, I mean, we have a lot of the similar guys as we would, right? As a lot of people would. Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, and A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like obviously all great plays. But what stood out to me with your rankings is that right behind Jamar Chase at number 1 for you, you have Justin Jefferson number 2. He's been disappointing people as of late. Can Sam Darnold get back on track with Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I look at this Cardinals defense. They've been improved with Jonathan Gannon, but they're not the same team on the road. They're just not. When you look at them overall, their profile is a better home team. When they go on the road, something happens to everybody. It's not just the offense and Kyler Murray, but the defense as well. So I look at this. I mean, there's no scary corners on the Cardinals where I'm too concerned here with Justin Jefferson. I think there's also going to be a little bit of squeaky wheel because he didn't get involved. Everyone else was doing things. Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor scored. TJ Hawkinson had a 100-yard game. He's probably a little bit upset that he didn't get in on the fun. This team's actually been winning, and I think the Bears tried to maybe contain him and take him out of the game. Well, you look at this week's matchup, the Cardinals, a little bit different the way they play defense. I think this could be those classic Jefferson games where we look at, he's got like 7 catches for 130 yards. Something like that is going to happen in this game. I can sense it here, and those are his typical games. And he doesn't have very many bad games, and when he does, he rebounds. And again, this is a decent matchup. It's in the Dome at home. I think everything will be fine here. And yeah, I expect him to play really well and keep the Vikings hot, by the way. They're just right behind the Lions. It seems like every week they're keeping up with them. So they're waiting for that second game against them, and they're going to be motivated to win.
Yeah, he needs to score a touchdown. I mean, it's been 5 straight games without a touchdown. He was a touchdown machine to start the season with Sam Darnold. So those have to come, but I have him at wide receiver 8, so I do expect a bounce back as well. Not as high on him as you, but he's still like he should have a good week. Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, those guys are in your lineup, even though their offense is struggling. They're not. They're getting the targets, and they can have those big games. But the one guy that's like, it doesn't make any sense. He's not having the big games or the targets and nothing's happening. It's Tyreek Hill. And it's really hard to rank Tyreek Hill because it's hard to put Tyreek Hill too low. We did end up having him at the exact same spot. So we determined that we think he could land around the wide receiver 14 this week.
Yeah.
However, I hate the matchup, and I don't love the ranking.
Yeah, right now his name is the only thing propping him up into wide receiver 2 territory. When you look at the numbers, he's really a wide receiver 3 in the way he's been producing, even at the better weeks that puts him into wide receiver 3. Now, I have a bit of a theory. Like, I know the wrist injury is there, and he's supposed to play and all that, and he's good to go. But I have a theory that he might have slowed down a little bit, but the Dolphins are keeping him out there, so he's a threat, right? And that's why you see everything else open up, like the little checkdowns to Devin Acham. They're going for plays. You've got Jonnu Smith involved in the intermediate route. So I'm not sure that Tyreek is at 100%. And I know the wrist doesn't affect his running, but I'm wondering if there's something else going on here where he's not the same field stretcher, but everyone thinks he's the same field stretcher, so they try to – kind of defend and take him out of the game and make Tua beat you with somebody else. So That's something going on here. I think he'll rebound, but I can't just call a big game anymore. It's like he needs a touchdown all of a sudden to have a big game because he's not having those big yardage days. Remember last year he was pushing for 2,000 yards,
Yeah.
and he's not even going to come close to that this year. So I don't know what to do with Tyreek Hill. Like you can't just put him on your bench, right? That would look bad. I mean, he did score 2 weeks ago and he was viable. So I think you just have to treat him. And sometimes it's not benching; it's just saying, okay, Tyreek Hill might be a wide receiver 2-3 borderline this particular season. And that's the way I have to expect his production to be and hope one of my other guys I'm starting at wide receiver 2 or 3 that you thought you were going to put there, they produce like your alphas and hope for the best for Tyreek Hill.
Well, one guy that is producing like an alpha that you took late in your drafts or maybe even got to pick up on waivers at some point, it's Courtland Sutton. I mean, he has been so good lately. Wide receiver 2 this last week, a couple weeks ago, wide receiver 7, the week before that, wide receiver 13. Like he's getting the targets, he's putting up the receiving yards, and now he is scoring touchdowns the last couple weeks. So he gets a really nice matchup at home against the Browns. The Browns defense away stinks, and Bo Nix at home is just great. So we both expect huge games from Courtland Sutton this week. You have him all the way at your wide receiver 6, and I have him wide receiver 11. But I even like it was just like the other guys I like a little bit more, but I love Sutton this week.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think the Broncos really spread the ball around to their other wide receivers, but Cortland Sutton has become clearly the number one for Bo Nix. And we talked about the Browns and their big play struggles here with their coverage, and they can struggle against this guy as well because he's big, strong, a little bit like the profile of George Pickens, who made some plays. Really, probably should have had a touchdown, a little bit more action against the Browns last game. So I look at this and Sutton can cause the similar problems. He's got the size, strength, he's got speed on the outside. So I always thought he could be like the Mike Evans type based on his body and style, like the guy that can stretch the field, make some catches, go up and get it. He's starting to do that, and sometimes he's just been hurt by poor quarterback chemistry. But Nix and Sutton have been developing chemistry with each week. We thought he was going to have that with Russell Wilson. That didn't materialize. So we're seeing maybe his talent manifest here with Nix. And again, it's a committee with the other receivers other than Devon Bailey, who's kind of like the slot guy number 2, but everyone else is kind of in the mix and spreading it around. But Sutton is the guy that's a consistency for Nix downfield.
Brian Thomas Jr. is another guy we're really both high on. I have him at wide receiver 13. You have him at 15. He goes against the Texans this week. The Texans defense is just like, they can get turnovers, but they're allowing a lot of passing yards, a lot of passing touchdowns. They just got beat up by Will Levis and Nick Westbrook-Ikine. And of course, we will end up moving down Brian Thomas Jr. if Trevor Lawrence doesn't end up playing, but he's been practicing. It looks like there's a chance he could play. Looks like a good chance. So as long as Trevor Lawrence is out there, I'm high on Brian Thomas Jr. He did, even though with Mac Jones, though, before their bye, he had a solid game, 5 receptions for 82 yards. He does need Lawrence, though, there to have that touchdown opportunity, to have that big play opportunity. So again, Lawrence is there, then I really like Brian Thomas this week in this matchup.
Yeah, the volume is going to be there. We know that. Gabe Davis is done. Christian Kirk is not around. Evan Engram, we'll see. I mean, he's a different type of receiver, but you need wide receiver help on this team all of a sudden. Look pretty deep or going into the season when you had Kirk and Davis in the mix, but now those guys are gone and Thomas is the clear number 1, and they're using him in a lot of the capacities those guys were used in. I mean, he was already being used in the Davis role to stretch the field, but now after the catch, getting in the middle of the field, all that stuff. So the good routes and the good opportunities, high leverage chances here are happening for Brian Thomas Jr. And it's been a bye week, so I figure they're going to learn how to scheme this rookie open even more. And it was encouraging that he got it done with Mac Jones, but I think that would give him a decent floor, but he has a higher ceiling, of course, with Lawrence passing to him.
Yeah, he definitely does. Now, does Malik Neighbors have a higher ceiling with Drew Lock passing to him? Because it seems like Tommy DeVito now, he made it through one game. He hurt his forearm. It doesn't look like he's going to play tomorrow on Thanksgiving. I do think Drew Lock would be better for Malik Neighbors. It wasn't the worst game by Neighbors ever. 9 targets, 6 receptions, 64 yards in week 12. But will it be better with Drew Lock? I have him wide receiver 17. You have him 23. That's just based on his talent and what we know he can do. Not so much on us feeling great about him this week.
Yeah, the one thing I compared Drew Lock earlier, someone asked me, what would this be like? And I said, I think it's a lot like Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco. You're going to have a dude that's just going to chuck the ball up. He's not going to care. Drew Lock, the one thing he has is a cannon arm. He can get the ball downfield, and that's what he's done in mild flashes we've seen for the Broncos and Seahawks. I mean, we haven't seen him play all that much, really, but that's one thing he's going to chuck it up. So that could actually open up the offense a little bit. Neighbors is probably going to be happy about that. And look, it might end up being 2 interceptions, but you could also see him stretching the field a lot better because he's going to take those chances. So sometimes we want that quarterback when we have some big play receivers. I think this also, like, if we're playing DFS, you could look at Darius Slayton because he's a big play guy as well. So I think they're just going to throw it up. What do they have to lose at this point? And I think it's an okay matchup where they'll stay in it a little bit against the Cowboys. So that helps. But I do like that Drew Lock is going to be a little bit more fearless. I'm tired of these check downs and compressing offenses. Throw deep when you have a guy like Neighbors. And what's the worst can happen? You've already lost all these games. You're not going to the playoffs. So just try to beat your rivals, make some big plays, make Neighbors happy, and have the rookie stop chirping because they don't want Odell Beckham Jr. Part 2 on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy DeVito just looked lost out there. It was terrible. It was just so bad. Yeah. So I'm happy for Drew Lock to get this shot, and I'm happy for Malik Neighbors to have Drew Lock. We're going to take a quick break, get into the rest of our wide receivers. We have a revenge game here for Geno Smith. Now, does that mean that his wide receivers will go off as well? We shall talk about it. But let's take a quick break, and then we'll get into that shortly.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. We will come back Friday after we take our Thanksgiving day off here to look at our Prize Picks of the week, our 6-pack there that we break down and crack open for you with the advice that you need to know. And how do you play Prize Picks? It's very easy. You just look at the projections available. You just go more or less on players, and you pick up to an amount that will multiply your winnings with anything you do there. 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings only from Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Again, you can win 100 times your cash, run your game all season long only on Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. That's all you need, more or less, on these projections. Prize Picks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So a lot of ways to win. Sign up today and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Also, check out Prize Picks weekly promotions. They can lead to big payouts. They also have Taco Tuesday each Tuesday that are going to help you boost your winnings. It's very easy to get in on a Prize Picks. It's a lot of fun. You just get in more or less on the player projections and go from there. It's Prize Picks. Check it out. Play Prize Picks. Run your game.
This episode is also brought to you by Skylight Frames. Are you missing someone this holiday season and want them to be a part of your festivities from afar? We've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You just upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use and it's super easy to set up. It takes less than 60 seconds and it really is just seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos. You can do that via the free Skylight mobile app or also through email. No account or subscription required. You can add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel much more connected to you. I know my mom does whenever I send her photos to her Skylight frame. She loves it. This is the top-rated brand for a reason, and there's over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. And it's even recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and more. And now we have a special offer for you. And there's a limited time offer for our listeners. You get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylightframe.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. There was one ranking I was very shocked by when I looked at your rankings, Vinny, and it's Jaxson Smith-Njigba going up against the Jets. You have him all the way down at wide receiver 28. I'm at wide receiver 16. I pushed him down a little bit because it's a little bit of a tougher matchup, but the last three games he's played, he's been wide receiver 1, 12, and 11. He has been on fire. Why do you have him so low this week?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit worried about the Jets matchup and how much
Are
scoring
the
is.
Jets still good though?
Well, I think they're actually better where Jaxson Smith-Njigba lines up a little bit. I think DK Metcalf, if he gets a little Sauce Gardner, that's going to help him. And they need to get DK going a little bit. I also think the Jets are not going to put up much resistance in this game, so I'm worried about Geno Smith's volume. I know he's been crushing it. I'm not that concerned. I still think you should play him. I just have him as a wide receiver 3 this week. I'm just being a little bit more modest with his production. But I do like his role now that there's no Tyler Lockett as much. It's basically him and Metcalf, and he's kind of taken over because they've got great chemistry, Smith and Jigba. So again, I just don't expect a big game for him because partly because the Jets, I don't know what you're going to get. The Seahawks defense played really well last week, so I know Smith-Njigba got it done. So I just think they're going to have a little bit more success in this particular game to win it with their defense and running game, more so than chucking it up often in this one. So this is kind of a volume-based kind of drop, but I still like him as wide receiver 3. I could see him going like 8 for 80 or something like that. I'd be happy with that. I think it's probably going to be closer to the floor than the ceiling this week, but that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, if Josh Downs can do 584-1 against the
Yeah.
Jets, the last time
Very
the Jets
similar,
played,
yeah.
then I think JSN can as well. So that's why I'm there at 14, or what I say? No, at 16. There's 2 guys though that we do agree on, and we both have Ladd McConkey against the Falcons and Calvin Ridley against the Commanders as top 24 wide receivers each. So that means we're both happy plugging them into our wide receiver 2 spot, right? Are they just now every week plays though? Because these guys are officially getting the targets. They're getting the production. Calvin Ridley, I mean, I guess both of them, they're not consistent touchdown scorers, but in terms if you're in a half PPR, full PPR league, I do feel like they're an every week play.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey has a great matchup this week. We'll see the state of the Falcons' nickelback situation, but it was pretty brutal. They were down to their 3rd guy against the Broncos before the bye, so they're just weak at that position in general. There's not much depth, so McConkey has been lining up a lot inside, so that's really great for him. The Falcons might play a little bit zone, take away the big play from Justin Herbert, but that would really mean a lot for McConkey in the middle of the field and Will Dissly. If you look at the numbers, that's where the Falcons give up a lot to the slot and to the tight end. So that could be the type of game you have Justin Herbert attacking them with this week. Now, Calvin Ridley, really, it's just Will Levis. Again, we like to see young quarterbacks, just letting it fly, seeing what you have. And he's done that with his 2 receivers. I think it's almost like he is not under pressure to get the ball to like a DeAndre Hopkins. It's just like, okay, I'm going to throw to these 2 guys. And what do we see? Chigakonkwo getting into the mix as a big play guy. So I think what you're seeing is the Brian Callahan offense here just kind of manifests itself a little bit with Will Levis. It was a good system there for Joe Burrow. And now you're seeing that kind of emerge here as we've gone into the second half and Levis has been healthy. So I always like that Titan system. I think obviously we've seen it do well for the Bengals as an extension of what the Rams, Vikings, those type of teams are doing. So I love this passing game. And we talked about Levis has been good. I mean, we thought, oh, Mason Rudolph's going to be good for this, but Levis has been much better for Ridley.
Yeah, no, he definitely has. And since DeAndre Hopkins left, I just feel like that offense is finding their grooves with the younger guys. Now, what do we do with the Bears wide receivers? Can we trust DJ Moore this week? Can we possibly trust Keenan Allen? Like this was this week 12 was DJ Moore's first good week since week 5. And after his big week 5 performance, he came back and had 5 targets for 20 receiving yards in that very next game in a great matchup against the Jaguars, I may add. And then Keenan Allen has only had one. This was his first game with over 50 receiving yards all season long, but he did have that one game earlier in the season with 2 touchdowns, scored a lot of fantasy points, came back in the next game and had 2 receptions for 39 yards. Well, I don't think I can really trust them. If I'm going to trust one, it'll be DJ Moore. But the Lions defense has been really great like lately.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is for Keenan Allen, he's going to be in the inside. You have 2 of the interception leaders there. Really, they've got 11, I think, combined in all their games, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. So in the middle of the field, they're pretty tough. And I don't see that being a forced issue. And the big difference now with DJ Moore last week, I think, was Thomas Brown, the new offensive coordinator, trying to get the ball to their best receiver, and also Allen and Cole Kmet. The problem with Allen and Kmet, they have some bad matchups this week. based on what the Lions do against the tight end on the slot. So it's kind of the opposite of what we're looking at with the Falcons, where we want to go on the outside a little bit more. So I think DJ Moore should get some high volume. Expect the Bears to trail. They're double-digit underdogs. So second half, he should get some volume, as well as Roma Dunze. I just don't like them as much in the middle of the field because of how well the Lions cover there. So Allen absolutely cannot trust, but Moore, I can come around. The talent is just too much, and I think the coordinator Brown realized that, say, hey, we got to put this ball in his hands as much as possible and take our chances. And I think you're seeing DJ Moore respond to that. I think the reason he checked out early is they were forgetting about him in the game plan, and now they're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need him to to keep up with the Lions. Maybe it's one of those like really garbage games where they can start getting some yardage in the fourth quarter or something like that. Now, to finish up our wide receiver talk, I want you to rank these 3 wide receivers for me. These are flex plays. These are deeper plays. But Nick Westbrook-Akine against the Commanders, Devin Vele against the Browns, or Marquez Valdes-Scantling against the Rams. I know Scantling's my favorite out of this group, and then I'd probably go Vele and then Westbrook. But how would you rank them?
Yeah, I'm going to go MVS first because I think the Rams secondary is beatable, and he's going to be their guy. And I think this could be a game that we have more points than we think for both teams. So I'm going with MVS first. I mean, he's just going to see the targets. By default, he's going to be involved. NWI, I guess I go next. I don't know if he goes by that, but Nick Westbrook-Akine. I'm not quite sure what Devon Bailey's middle name is, but when we go with that, I would put him last, only because, again, I think in this particular matchup against the Browns, the outside is going to be open for a lot of big plays. They might not need as much, and I don't necessarily see the Broncos going off as much, a lot of volume to Sutton. So I kind of see that. Again, I think the Rams and Saints could go back and forth. I could also see the Titans making it a little bit interesting there in their game this week. So I do like that kind of combination ahead of Bailey this week, more for their big play upside.
Yeah, but MVS, great play. Like the Rams are giving up the 5th most deep receiving yards and tied for 2nd most deep receiving touchdowns. And we know that's pretty much the only thing that MVS does. So expect another long touchdown from him this week. And he's just putting up the yards and touchdowns. So go with MVS. We are going to now transition into our tight end talk for week 13. Can Noah Gray stop stealing touchdowns? That would be great. I can't trust Noah Gray, but maybe you can. We will dig into all of it to close out the show right after our break.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you as well by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action, and not just for the big Thanksgiving Day slate. We have the triple header, but Week 13 is huge because we have all the teams in action. That means we have the full schedule of games. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of any of these games, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you've placed your bets on all those games. So it's very easy, all in one place there. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started again with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Michelle, let us look at our tight end rankings, and I think these are interesting this week. There's some really good tight end matchups. Let's start with Travis Kelce. What do we do with Travis Kelce? He's watching Noah Gray double his touchdown total in a matter of 2 games. He had two TD games that Kelsey should have had probably, but I don't know what's going on with Kelsey. Where do you have him ranked this week, and do you trust him, or would you even extend to think about Noah Gray this week?
I still have Kelsey number 1.
Wow.
I know I'm crazy. I mean, he still had 8 targets last week. He still put up 6 for 62. A normal tight end. We're happy about that, right?
Yeah.
And it's insane that Noah Gray has caught 2 touchdowns each the last 2 weeks. But now that defenses have to go in and be like, okay, now we also have to worry about Noah Gray, things just shift back over to Kelsey. It's not just like, oh, they're forgetting about Noah Gray out there. I'm personally not starting Noah Gray. If you want to get bold and just be hoping for those touchdowns, fine. But I'm not doing it. Are you starting him?
No, I have no interest. I mean, there's a lot of random guys who score touchdowns like that. I remember the one year where Eric Ebron was pretty much scoring it every week. And then when he didn't score, he put up zeros like a couple weeks. So something to watch out there with Noah Gray. Like he could easily give you a zero. Travis Kelce's not going to give you a zero. We know that, especially in a matchup against the Raiders, right? He's just going to be crushing it. So I do love Travis Kelce this week, but he's just down at number 4. So I'm slacking a little bit on him, having number 4. But I have Brock Bowers on the other side. The Chiefs give up a lot against the tight end. I'm back at number 1. George Kittle, I think he's back in the mix now. He seemed to produce with Brandon Allen. So I am at number 3, exactly where Michelle has him. And then Trey McBride, I am at 5, and you have him at 2. The guy that we differ on is Cade Otton. I have him up at 2. You have him at 5. Now, Otton, I think it's just the matchup. The Panthers are so bad against the tight end. And Otton didn't have a great game last week. I thought that was going to be the case. But I think he rebounds this time and has a good one. And I think he at least scores maybe a good 6 catches, 60 yards, something like that.
Yeah, no, I love Cade Otton this week. It was just hard to put him over Kelsey, Kittle, Bowers. Maybe I could switch McBride and like if you have Otton, start him. Like I still love him this week. He's in my top 5. Too good of a matchup not to play him against the Panthers, who are they're giving up so many points to the tight end position. I mean, Noah Gray did catch those 2 touchdowns against the Panthers, and then Kelsey still also had his receiving yards that we expected against the Panthers as well. Now, one that's interesting is you have Taysom Hill at tight end 6. I didn't get that bold. I put him at tight end 10. I mean, I know he was like the entire Saints offense, him and MVS prior to their bye, but we've seen Taysom Hill have these huge games and then go back to disappearing. So are you worried about that at all? It doesn't seem like you are.
Well, I just looked at what the Rams did last week. They let a very fast physical back get past them. And Taysom Hill is essentially a fast physical back. And when you can block him and get him going, and he has a lot of speed, and everyone just forgets how fast this guy is. He's a track star, and he's just so built, so strong that you forget that this guy can speed past entire defense. So I don't have a lot of confidence after what I saw with the Rams that they're going to really slow down Taysom Hill. And I would be paying attention to that film if I'm the Saints. And, of course, paying attention to the film the week before the bye. And I told you guys and gals that I liked Darren Rizzi's effect on Taysom Hill because he's like kind of a rah guy. He's the energy of this situation as well. So I think Taysom is going to begin. You got to look at him as a complementary running back to Alvin Kamara. That's how you have to look at him first. Okay, then he's going to get some catches. Oh, he might throw a touchdown. Great. Then you're adding it up. Okay, then we're going to play him, right? All that says we are. I don't think they go away. Why would you go away from that when he's been so good? And he's also really good on that fast track in New Orleans as well, where they play indoors.
Yeah, he's a good player. I might move him up. I think you should talk me into it.
Sorry.
Now, TJ Hawkinson, we may have too low. I have him at 6, you have him at 7. He's up and down, right? You never know if he's going to ghost you or put up a 100-yard game. But if you have him, you're playing him because there's not many tight ends that have that upside of a 100 receiving yard game, and Hawkinson is one of them. Now, Evan Engram is one of those guys slightly. He does it once in a while, those huge boom games. Now, with Trevor Lawrence back, like if Mac Jones is out there, like he hasn't been playable, Evan Engram. But if Trevor Lawrence is back, where do we like Evan Engram? I put him at tight end 7 if Lawrence is back. Is your ranking at 10 expecting Lawrence to be back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not excited ever to play Evan Engram because the chances of a touchdown are very limited, right? I mean, he had one big touchdown game last year. Usually comes sometime. This could be the game. Who knows that this is the big touchdown game, but I just look at the targets. They have to go to Thomas and Engram, and that's where they're going to get done. But I just think that, again, I would put Engram higher. I think, again, I always say if they have a better chance of a touchdown, I put them a little bit higher. So that's why I have them went down, Engram. But again, 7, 10, no matter what it is, the tight end landscape says you're probably playing him this week.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Jonnu Smith, he's made it into both of our top 12s, and I think he deserves to be there. I know we're worried about Tua. We're worried about this offense in general going to Green Bay. It's supposed to be like a high of 19 degrees in Green Bay, but that probably means more shorter passes. That's what they've been doing all year anyways. And Jonnu Smith is the one big dude in their offense, right? I mean, all the other guys have no fat on them to stay warm. Jonnu Smith at least is a bigger dude to not be so frigid cold and to maybe actually do something in this weather. So he's been too good to not have him top 10 this week.
Yeah, I'm right at 11. So, I mean, there's some usual suspects that are back. I mean, Kyle Pitts also has a pretty good matchup against the Chargers, who that's the one place where they struggle. David Njoku actually has a decent spot against the Broncos where they're really good on wide receivers. So that makes a lot of sense. So, again, tight ends have been hard to rank. Again, there's some volatility. So you kind of go with who has the bigger game upside in going down. But Jonnu Smith has shown a lot of big games. He scores in a lot of games, and he's been very consistent doing that. So I do love Jonnu Smith, and again, he's been one of the better probably waiver wire pickups this season.
So let's say I have one more question for you with tight ends.
Okay.
Let's say you've been holding strong with Sam Laporta this year.
Oh boy.
But you're going into tomorrow's game, and let's say Jake Ferguson doesn't play. I don't know if we have a report on that or not. Are you going Luke Schoonmaker over Sam Laporta this week?
Yeah, I would play Schoonmaker because I saw Cooper Rush, and I think he's really into him now. Keep in mind, and this is why I didn't like Cade Otton last week, the Giants are strangely good against tight ends, mainly because, again, they stink against wide receivers in the running game. So it's more product of that than them being very effective. But, again, there's not much else going on for the Cowboys, right? I mean, it's compressed offense. They're going to throw underneath CeeDee Lamb and Schoonmaker. So there was definitely something going on. And I kind of attribute it to the fact that they're both second stringers, Rush and Schoonmaker, so there was something there. I just can't trust Sam Laporta. It's almost like they don't need him in a lot of games. They just like, okay, Amon-Ra St. Brown can do it. We're going to run. It's also not the best matchup. The Bears' pass defense is still a little bit tricky. I think the Lions get it done more on the ground this week, which is good for Jared Goff in another way. But again, we've seen other tight ends involved. We've seen throw to other receivers. We've seen throw to Gibbs there as well. But it's like they just are not forced to needing Sam Laporta the way they did last year. And that's maybe a testament to the way Goff is playing and the way they're running the ball.
Yeah, it's been very, very irritating to have Sam Laporta. I won't be shocked if he scores, 10 points in this matchup, but I kind of think that's his ceiling. Well, I know I said that was the last one, but I just wanted to point out quickly that for once I'm in on Pat Freiermuth. I know you always want to talk about him, right? And I think this matchup is great. I have him ranked too low right now. I'm going to move him up before we get to tomorrow. But Pat Freiermuth, the Bengals have been allowing 6 tight ends have had great performances against the Bengals over their last 7 games. So Pat Freiermuth should be able to do it in this matchup.
Yeah, and the reason I talk about Pat Freiermuth a lot and Taysom Hill and Cade Otton, these guys are all in the experts league that we play in here. And so it's always hard to decide which one to sit because I'm always playing 2. Sometimes I play 3 tight ends, but I do like these guys a lot. And again, Freiermuth, I think it just depends a little bit on the matchup. If Russell Wilson's going to throw the ball to him more than usual, and you look at this game, the Bengals really stink at covering the tight end. So I would expect him to be more involved this week, definitely. Because, again, everyone else, like Calvin Austin, these other guys are just so sporadic. Even Mike Williams has made one play and then he kind of disappeared. So I think the 2 guys that you can expect to see targets and spots are Pickens and Freiermuth. Everyone else, we'll see.
Yeah, I actually think he's going to have a good game for once. So hopefully I am right. That is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for giving us a listen. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching there. If you're listening to us on your podcasts app, give us a like, leave us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. We hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. If you have guys playing tomorrow, I hope they all kill it for you and have big games. We will talk to you on Friday. Bye, y'all.